Okay, in this lesson today, we will be looking at solving equations with variables on both sides of the equation. So up here we have 3x equals, so we have 3x on the left side of the equation, and we have x plus 8, or 1x plus 8 on the right side of the equation. Since we have a variable on both sides, the first thing we want to do is get the variable on one side. Now, if you want to eliminate a step at the end, I put a little, if you want to press the easy button and remove a step, always move the one with the smaller absolute value. That will keep you from having to divide by -1 at the very end. But if we look up here, we have 3x and a 1x. So we're going to move the one with the smallest absolute value, and 1 is closer to 0 than 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract a 1x on both sides of the equation, because to move something from one side of the equation to the other, we use inverse operations, and since it's a positive 1x, we have to do a negative 1x on both sides of the equation. And when we do that, a 1x and a negative 1x becomes 0. So that leaves us with, there it is shown with the animation as well. On the left side of the equation, we now have 3x minus a 1x, which is 2x. And on the right side, we have the 8 left. Now, only one step left to do, because x is being multiplied times 2. X is not yet by itself. So now we have to do the opposite of multiply, which is divide 2 on both sides of the equation, because what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to both sides. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that leaves 1x, or just x on the left side, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So x, the unknown number, is 4. If we were to plug that back into the first equation, 3, and instead of x, we plug in 4, so 3 times 4 is 12 on the left side of the equation. And if we plug in x on the right side, 4 plus 8 is also 12. And 12 is obviously equal to 12, so it checks. Okay, another example here, we have 3x minus 2 on the left side, x plus 4 on the right side. Notice we have a variable on both sides of the equation. Here's the equal sign. This is what divides the equation into two parts. We have a variable on both sides, the same variable. It's easier and it'll eliminate a step at the end if we will move the one with the smallest absolute value, and these happen to be the same. We still have 3x and a 1x. So we're going to subtract 1x on both sides to get rid of it on the right side. And remember, when there's not a number in front of it, there's an understood 1, an invisible 1 that you can't see. So on the left side, we have 3x, or 2x minus 2 left. And on the right side, the x's canceled out, so we only have 4 left. Now we have a two-step equation left. So remember, when solving for a variable, locate the variable, move what's not attached to it first. We're going to remove the -2 to the other side first by adding 2 on both sides. When we do that, of course, the 2's become 0, and they're gone. We have a 2x left on the left side and 6 left on the right side. The variable is now being multiplied by 2, so we want to divide both sides by 2. I'll show that right here. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so there's our 1x that we have left on the left, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. We can also check this by plugging 3 back into the original equation to all the x's. So that would give us 3 times 3, which is 9, and 9 times 2 is 7, so we have 7 on the left side of the equation. And if we plug it into the right side, of course, 3 times 4 is 7, so it checks. 7y plus 8 equals 4y minus 10. Now I'm just going to show you what would happen if you did not move the smaller absolute value. So if I look up here, I want to move the one with the smaller absolute value, but what if you don't? What if you move the other one? Are you going to end up with the wrong answer? So let's just do it the other way just to show you what would happen. If I moved the 7y, I would be subtracting 7y on both sides, because what you do to one side, you must do to both sides. Well, 7 and a -7 becomes 0, so it's gone. So on the left side, we have 8 left, And on the right side, we have different signs, 4 and a negative 7, so we subtract, keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value. That would be a negative 3y minus 10 left on the right side. Now we have a two-step equation. We find our variable. We move what's not attached to it first, so we're going to add 10 to both sides of the equation. 10 and a negative 10 becomes 0. They're gone. So we have 18 on the left and a negative 3y. And now we divide by negative 3, and y is equal to negative 6. So y was equal to negative 6, even though we moved the big one first. Now what happens if we move the one with the smaller absolute value first? You're going to get the same answer. So if we subtract 4y on both sides, 4 and negative 4y becomes 0. So on the left side, you have 3y equals 8 equals a negative 10. You find the variable, move what's not attached to it first. So we're going to do a negative 8 on both sides of the equation. And same signs, add and keep the sign. So look, we have the same thing we had before. We have 3y equals negative 18, and we divide by 3, and y is still equal to negative 6. So don't spend too much time trying to figure out which one do I move first, which one do I move first. You can move either one of them. At the end, you're going to result in the same answer. Again, we could check this one, and we could plug the numbers back in. And 7 times negative 6 is a negative 42, plus a positive 8. This side we have a negative 24 and a negative 10, which makes a negative 34. And on this side, we also have a negative 34, so it checks. Okay, so here we have a 5p on the left side, and we have a 1p on the right side. So we can decide which one we want to move. I'm going to move the 1p to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 1p on both sides. So on the left side, we have 5p minus 1p, which would be 4p plus 15. These cancel out because a positive 1 and a negative 1 becomes 0, and you have a negative 49 left on the right side. We have a two-step equation. Locate the variable, move what's not attached to it first. So we're going to do a negative 15 on both sides of the equation. When we do that, the 15 and the negative 15 cancel out. They're gone. Goodbye. On the right side, we have two negatives, same signs, add and keep. So that would be a negative 64. Now we simply divide both sides by 4, and you get a negative 16. So it's the two-step equation that we've been working on, but before you get to the two-step equation, you have to get the variable on one side of the equation by itself. And there it is when we check it. Okay, a personal trainer charges a one-time fee of $60 plus $25 for each session, but you don't, per session, you don't know the number of sessions. So how could we write that? It says $60 plus $25 for each session, but we don't know the number of sessions, so that's an unknown number. A new fitness club charges a yearly fee of $450 plus $10 for each session. So $10 times the number of sessions that we don't know. So we basically had an equation that we wrote on the left side for the first place, and then another equation on the other side for the new fitness center. And then it says, write and solve an equation to determine for what number of sessions the cost would be equal. So we want the cost of the first place to be equal to the second place. That's why we set both equations on both sides of the equation with an equal sign. Here we have the variable on both sides of the equation, so we have to move one of them. I'm going to move the negative 10, because I just like to move the smaller one. When we do that, 10 and negative 10 cancel out, and you're left with 450 on the right side. And on the left side, you're left with 60 plus. You have different signs, so you subtract and keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value, so that would be 15x. Find your variable, move what's not attached to it first. So we're going to do a negative 60 on both sides of the equation. These cancel out. We have 15x, and now we're going to subtract. And if you do your regrouping, that would be 390. Now when you divide that by 15, you're going to get 26. So it would take 26 sessions in order for the cost of the two fitness places to be the same. If you are in my class and you're doing punchline 418, I'm going to do the first three problems here off the paper if you'd like to follow along with me. Here you see that we have the x variable on both sides of the equation. So I would choose to move the 3x, but it doesn't matter. You could move the 5x. I just like to move the smaller one. Positive 3x and negative 3x becomes 0. So on the left side we have a positive 5 and a negative 3. That would be 2x. We still have a plus 8 on the left side, and on the right side we have left a 20. Here's our two-step equation. Locate the variable, move what's not attached to it first, so I'm going to do a negative 8 on both sides of the equation. 8 and negative 8 cancel out, which leaves us with a 2x on the left side, and 20 minus 8 is 12. X is being multiplied by 2, so now we divide both sides by 2, and we find that the answer is 6. We could plug that back in to check. 5 times 6 is 30. And 8, so we have 38 on the left side, and on the right side we have 3 times 6, which was 18, and 18 plus 20 is also 38, so they're both equal on both sides. Here's the second one. I would choose to move the 2a. Got to get the variable by itself on one side first. 2a and negative 2 cancel out. Now we're left with our two-step equation. So on the left side we have a positive 9 and a negative 2. Different signs subtract. That would be 7a. We still have a plus 4 on the left side and a 25 on the right side. We have our two-step equation now. Locate the variable. Move what's not attached to it first. So we're going to do a negative 4 on both sides of the equation. 4 and negative 4 becomes 0. That leaves 7a on the left side, 21 on the right. And then when you do the last step and you divide by 7, we see that a is equal to 3. So if you were to plug that back in, 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 4 is 31. 2 times 3 is 6. And 6 plus 25 is also 31. So it checks. Last example, we have 6n minus 5 equals 3n plus 10. I'm going to choose to move the 3n, so I'm going to subtract 3n on both sides of the equation. 3n and negative 3n becomes 0. We have different signs, so we subtract and keep the sign of the one with the greatest absolute value, so we have a 3n. Copy down the rest of the problem. Now we have our two-step equation. Locate the variable. Move what's not attached to it first, so we would do the opposite, which is adding 5 on both sides. Cancels out. We have 3n equals 15, and then when we divide both sides by 3, that would give us 5. 6 times 5 is 30, and 30 minus 5 is 25. 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 plus 10 is also 25. So both sides equal 25 when you plug it back in and it checks.